Hello. Today we will be talking about the art of acting. Shakespeare on acting. This is a famous quote. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women are merely players. Let's go into training to be an actor. Being an actor is more than just being able to say words aloud. There's a lot of other things that go into it, as when we went over the key people chapter, you kind of saw other people who helped them develop their characters. So here are some things that they have to do. Okay, so they have to train their body. This means dance, martial arts, fencing, stage combat, circus techniques, yoga, and Tai Chi. Not all of these are required things, but the more things you know as an actor, the more skills you have in your arsenal, the more desirable you are. Like circus techniques, that could even be like gymnastic-y. Like there's a show that I did, The Taming, but the woman who was the main character couldn't do anything like that. And the script doesn't call for it, but then she's a beauty pageant queen in the play. But then I saw it at a different theater company, and this chick, she was a gymnast, and she did like, as her Miss America kind of thing, she did like a backflip on stage, and I was like, what? That's amazing. So like that's just something that was an extra thing and she could do it, so they did it, and that's really cool. You need to train your voice. This means doing breathing techniques, vocal techniques and pitch, volume, and resonance. You need to have different dialects, and being able to sing wouldn't hurt. And you need to train your mind. This means your memorization skills, engaging with your imagination, levels of empathy, keen awareness of your surroundings and others, and ability to analyze and synthesize information. One of the most influential actor, director type guys in the last century is a guy named Stanislavski. There's a method that he does of acting. He really wanted actors to act with it's like psychological acting. A lot of the acting before might have been like you read the lines and you say the lines, but he's like, why are you saying the lines? What is your character thinking? Be the character. Every word means something. And so people were like, what? So he's a big deal. Here's a quote. An actor lives, weeps, laughs on stage, but as he weeps and laughs, he observes his own tear and mirth. It is the double existence, this balance between life and acting, that makes art. Stanislavski was a seminal Russian theater practitioner. He was widely recognized as an outstanding character actor, and the many productions that he directed garnered him the reputation as one of the leading theater directors of his generation. And I have some clips for you.
You know that I've been on to you from the start, and not once did you pull the wool over this boy's eyes. You come in here and you sprinkle the place with powder and you spray perfume and you stick a paper lantern over the light bulb, and lo and behold, the place is turning to Egypt, and you are the queen of the Nile, sitting on your throne, swilling down my liquor, and you know what I say? Ha ha!
In the middle of the 1950s, actors like Marlon Brando, James Dean, and Montgomery Clift were understood to represent something totally new in acting for the American cinema. Their style was emotionally driven.
She hadn't said that. I didn't just say that way. I know it's true, but why?
Explosive.
Mom! A kid was killed tonight. I don't see how I can get out of that by pretending that it didn't happen.
And was perceived to contain greater complexity than the performances of their peers. It soon became known that these actors had all internalized variations on the same method, all of which had been pioneered decades earlier. A revolution in performance for the cinema, both for directors and actors, had been brewing since the earliest days of motion pictures on the stage of experimental theaters in Russia. Konstantin Stanislavski was working in Moscow as an actor and director at a time of great change and innovation. Throughout the 19th century, popular performance in the theater was often represented by formal categories like vaudeville, opera, melodrama, and musicals. What all of these forms had in common was a broad illustrative performative style. The nature of the actor's craft was thought to be one in which the ideas in the text would be embodied by the performer in a grandiose, symbolic fashion. Theater was a space where storytelling was always bigger than life. Whether it was the broad comedy of vaudeville or the operatic intrigue of melodrama, the actor was seen as a physical embodiment of emotions and ideas. The expectation was that the actor's craft was one of communicative clarity, learning what gestures, what methods of vocal articulation would allow the clear and transparent embodiment of dramatic expressions. Towards the close of the 19th century, a new trend started to emerge in Russian theater that inspired young actors and directors. Bucking the norm of centuries of theatrical presentation, this crazy idea called realism began to come onto the scene. In a realist theater, actors and directors began to dig into some of the underlying assumptions about the symbolic structure of performance.
You know what some of these writers do? They just drop off and lay there like they were stone dead. Not me, boy. I don't fake nothing.
Why would we assume certain forms or habits of the actor are the most truthful ways to illustrate ideas? After all, the way we individually navigate the world is so much more internal, much quieter, and much more ruminative. The key leader of this revolution was Konstantin Stanislavski. Stanislavski identified the conception of performance that had preceded realism as the art of representation. In constructing an alternative approach, he sought out not only a new set of symbols, but a totally new methodology through which we could think about the actor's craft. Stanislavski described his system as the art of experiencing.
And I think Wordsworth means that when we grow up, that we have to forget the ideals of youth.
The obsession of this new method is focusing on the actor as a heightened emotional animal, one who aspires towards forgetting that they are not the character they are representing.
You say one thing, he says another, and everybody changes back again!
And in this craft of forgetting, the emphasis becomes emotionally truthful reactions and experiences.
And my wife is sitting there looking at me, and I feel like I'm a million miles from her, and I know that there's something wrong, you know, that I can't keep living like this, that there's got to be something more to love than commitment. But then I think that I might have given up on the whole idea of romantic love, that I might have put it to bed that day when you weren't there.
Suddenly, performance stopped being about transparent representation and became about complex shades of vulnerability.
Well, I'm your mama, ain't I?
It became about being. Subtext and the subconscious were now more fully invited to be represented by the performer, exciting a revolution not only in how actors staged their scenes, but in how writers and directors thought about the whole endeavor of telling stories through drama.
Would you like to come visit me this Sunday? Yes. What a strange girl you are. Why? Flung out of space.
To Stanislavski, the lifeblood of a performance was the honest emotional experience of the actor.
When a thing is important, I tell the truth. And this is the truth. I never cheated my sister, or you, or anyone else on earth as long as I lived.
Inevitably, every performance represented a mixture of formal practice and honest emotional experience, but performance was at its best when it was spontaneous, when it was lived in, and when it accurately represented the specific human character of the narrative.
Terry, take this job, please.
Charlie.
Please take it.
Charlie.
Stanislavski documented the many methods and techniques he pioneered in books such as The Actor Prepares, Building a Character, and Creating a Role. Teachers like Lee Strasberg, Stella Adler, and Sanford Meisner all adapted and expanded parts of Stanislavski's system in American theater schools. Teaching a new generation of students this approach to the craft of performance led to a whole new wave of method actors.
I figured that he must have got you mixed up, but he goes in and out of Oriole all the time, so he can check and clear on any mistake.
Whose ambitions would bring them to the cinema.
I couldn't help myself. I couldn't.
Stanislavskian realism became a part of the DNA of that cinema. And while there are still many types of films and many types of performative styles which thrive in the garden of moving pictures, realism rests supreme. And perhaps, more critically, the way that we fundamentally read a performance, judge its character, and think about directing it, has become inextricably linked to Stanislavski's view that a good performance is grounded in the emotional reality of the actor's embodied experience. For generations, directors and actors had accepted the nature of performance as it had been presented to them. Stanislavski wasn't satisfied with the status quo. He wanted to understand why a performance could feel truthful some of the time and false others.
Stop making those awful faces! Stop acting!
If we endeavor to tell stories, we must be bold enough to take a position on what we think is underneath it all. What is at the core of our craft? Only from that position of first principles can we push ourselves further and try to forge ahead in a frontier of yet unasked questions. To understand these foundations is to ask those same questions Stanislavski asked. What is a performance? Why does it move us? And how might we guide actors toward a greater sense of the truth?
Another influential actor-director is Tadashi Suzuki. He is the founder and director of the Suzuki Company of Toga, the SCOT, organizer of Japan's first international theater festival, Toga Festival. He is the creator of the Suzuki method of actor training. Suzuki's training embodies the stamina and concentration of traditional Japanese theater. The rigorous training is designed to temper and shape the body so the actor can bring to the stage a brilliant liveliness that takes into account the tiniest detail of movement. And there are a lot of directors that kind of follow this. One thing is if you train your body really well as an actor, like if you know to make sounds come out of like all of your body except for just your larynx, like to completely let go and let your body be like a vehicle for the words. I know I'm sounding a little poetic right now. Because if you're on stage and you're doing a dance move and you're like, oh man, I'm tired, or oh, I need to like focus on my breath, you're not focusing on your character. So his type of training trains the body a lot, so then you can do all of these intricate details and you won't be tired, because if you're thinking about being tired, you're not thinking about your character. And here's some clips.
Tadashi Suzuki is a Japanese director of theater. He's a writer and a philosopher. He was born on June 21st, 1939 in Shimizu City. He attended Waseda University in Japan, where he majored in economics and politics. When in college, he joined the drama department. This is where he discovered his passion for theater. At the time of his graduation, there were many changes going on in Japan. It went from being agricultural to industrialized society. Tadashi and his group of friends decided to open their own theater. He says, quote, "We were creating a theater to posit a response to the identity crisis that existed in Japan at the time." This group gained popularity through international events, which expanded his career. In 1976, Tadashi relocated his theater group from his home in Tokyo to Toga. They went on to rename themselves the Suzuki Company of Toga, or SCOT. Since the move, it was expanded into a large complex with lodging, rehearsal rooms, and performing and theater spaces of all types. It also includes a lakeside amphitheater. Tadashi is the organizer of Japan's first international theater festival called the Toga International Arts Festival. This festival was held in the village in the mountains of western Japan. This festival offered workshops in Suzuki method, trainings for actors. It invited theater companies from around the world to come and not only perform but work together, to live in the village and collaborate with each other. Tadashi Suzuki developed a technique to train actors which is called and known as the Suzuki method. This method is internationally known and one of the most commonly taught acting methods in the United States. This method is said to work to build the actor's awareness of his body, particularly their core. According to the MIT Global Shakespeare's website, this method has been taught at big-name schools like Juilliard and Columbia. This article also states that this method of teaching has been gaining popularity with the Royal Shakespeare Company. The Suzuki method uses exercises that require an immense amount of concentration and energy, which are inspired by martial arts and Greek theater. There's a great deal of importance in leg work in this method. The focus on the leg and foot movement is a way to increase the actor's concentration and regulate the actor's breathing. This not only trains the actors physically, but also provides psychological training. The purpose of the exercises is to have the actors become more aware of their natural expressiveness so they can be more successful when playing the required role. The leg work training includes different ways of walking, which some examples may include stomping, pigeon toes, bicycle walks, the side kick, and the side stomp. Unlike other producers or directors who may have created their own methods, Suzuki does not view that his method is the only working one. He believes that it is, quote, one working hypothesis and that there are others that do work when teaching in the performance industry. He has some interesting standpoints. For example, he believes that what becomes interesting for actors to explore and for audiences to watch is the way actors can overcome obstacles. For Suzuki, acting should be judged by the reasons the actor has to stand on a stage, and he suggests that an actor's lack of skill often only displays an actor's physical limitations and personal oppressions. Tadashi Suzuki has made a big impact on the theatrical world. As we all know, performing arts is a huge industry all over the world, and Tadashi is one of the people who have helped to make it better and made new ways to practice and train to become better. He is 76 years old and still to this day is teaching his method to students who want to learn. People who practice with him in schools all over the world are also teaching his method, and it is still gaining popularity. Tadashi has revolutionized the actor training not only in Japan but all over the world as well.